CEO Mark Zuckerberg told Bloomberg News that Spark 1.1 includes a new paid tier for developers. Well, let's get more on this now with Bloomberg's Kurt Wagner, who spoke with Zuckerberg. Kurt, give us some of the finer details. What did Mark tell you?
Yeah, I mean, this is a model that is an updated MuseSpark. MuseSpark was already out. This is MuseSpark 1.1, as you mentioned. But I think the big thing here is that for the very first time, they're going to, sell access to this model to businesses and developers. They have that API that we've sort of been waiting for, that a lot of the other AI companies already offer. And so this is a direct revenue stream for them. And, one of the things that we spent a lot of time talking about when I chatted with Zuckerberg was the pricing and the fact that he really wants to go cheap on the pricing. One, because he thinks the competitors are too expensive. Two, because he's trying to get this model into as many hands as possible. And the cheaper he does that, the cheaper he makes it, the more likely that is to happen. So this is very much a classic meta strategy, make things as cheap as possible for as much distribution as possible.
So on one hand, they have this new way of generating revenue with this AI model. And Kurt, you and the team also learning earlier in the month that they're also now setting up a cloud business too to sell AI compute. How much of this is just trying to escape this trap that Meta is in, with its shares now into a bear market, about can you get a return on investment that all the spending and capex that Meta is currently undergoing?
I think this has been the biggest concern from investors over certainly the last 6 months is, hey, you're spending aggressively, you're making these big commitments, you're doing the things on paper that AI companies should be doing. But what is the plan to make all that back? And so that was a real concern a few months ago when they reported first quarter earnings. Since then, we've seen them come out with a consumer subscription for their AI chatbot. They're charging for AI agents. They're building, setting the framework internally for a potential cloud enterprise business. Maybe they're even going to sell some of the compute that they've accumulated. So they're really, setting up all of these various businesses around AI that didn't exist just 2, 3, 4 months ago. And if you're an investor, you have to be saying at the very least, okay, we know where the company plans to get some of that investment back, which was not necessarily as clear at the beginning of the year.
Yeah, it didn't seem like the likes of Zuckerberg ever cared that much about where shares were trading, but Meta has really had a terrible run, you have to say, Kurt. What did he say about that?
Well, he essentially asked him about morale at the company. I said, look, you did these big layoffs, a lot of internal restructuring with AI, and he kind of just chalked it up to times of change. There is going to be disruption when you have a technology as big, powerful, and influential as AI sort of come into the mix. And they are using AI in a way that they weren't 6 months ago. Their engineers are using it to build products and app features. They're obviously trying to adjust the human side of the business to match the technological side of the business. So he kind of just chalked that up to, hey, this is what happens in times of disruption. But I do think it's hard to ignore not only the stock price, but what that does to morale inside the company. We've certainly seen reports and heard rumblings from employees that things are not great there. But a strong business and a good stock price usually fixes a lot of that stuff.
Well, it wasn't really that long ago, Kurt, just quickly here, that Meta was paying top dollar for AI engineers. How is the race and the competition for talent currently unfolding?
I think that it's still going to be competitive. We see people jumping from, OpenAI to Anthropic to Meta to Google. Like, we see this sort of musical chairs of AI talent. I do think they're more settled than they were. Obviously, last year, they were building this new lab essentially from scratch. So they had to go out and spend aggressively on all these people. They have the leadership in place with Alexander Wang there. So I don't think they're doing quite as much of that as they were. But I think there's always going to be a bit of a musical chairs with the talent, just because it is so unique and the people with those skill sets are so in demand still. So I don't think we're seeing quite the eye-popping prices we saw last summer, but I think there's still a lot of interest there if you have that skill set.